Welcome on board, chosen one. Let's not pretend this is some soft motivational pep talk. This is a receipt. This is proof. This is the moment where everyone who laughed, doubted, whispered and smirked is suddenly very quiet. Because you said it out loud back then, and now it's happening right in front of their eyes. Bro, you spoke too soon, or at least that's what they thought. Turns out you spoke exactly on time. Remember how they reacted? Why are you talking like that? Relax, you're not there yet. Look who thinks they're special. They said it casually, like it was advice, but it was really fear wearing a friendly face. They didn't hate your words. They hated what your words implied. That you saw something coming, that you weren't waiting for permission, that you were already mentally standing somewhere they hadn't even imagined. Let's call it what it was. When you said those things, your life didn't look impressive. Your bank account wasn't loud. Your position wasn't respected. Your name didn't stop rooms. And that's exactly why they felt comfortable mocking you. People only laugh when they think they're safe. They thought you were dreaming. They thought you were posturing. They thought, this one talks big, but nothing's happening. And now look at them. Same mouths, different silence. There's a real psychological truth here, and it's uncomfortable for insecure people. Humans who are aligned internally often speak with certainty before external results show up. Not because they're arrogant, but because their nervous system already adjusted to a future their environment hasn't caught up with yet. You didn't guess. You felt it. Your body knew before your timeline showed proof. That's why your words came out early, not to impress anyone, but because something inside you had already shifted. The universe had already moved the chess pieces. The board just hadn't caught up yet. They said, you're moving too fast. They said, slow down, be realistic. They said, oh, the legend needs to bow first. Funny how nobody's laughing now. Before this goes any further, press the like button and subscribe. Not as a favor to me, but as a way of backing this message, paying it forward and strengthening the voice of everyone who was doubted before they were proven right. Now let's go back to the moment things changed. There's always a phase nobody talks about, the quiet one. The stretch where nothing dramatic happens on the outside, but everything rearranges on the inside. This is where most people fold. You didn't. You stayed calm while being misunderstood. You kept moving while being questioned. You let them underestimate you because correcting them would have slowed you down. That's villain discipline. That's composure earned through pressure. And here's what really messes with them. You didn't come back loud. You didn't announce victory. You didn't say, I told you so. You just kept existing at a higher level. That's the part that eats at them late at night. The realization that you didn't need their approval, their applause, or their apology. You passed them without making eye contact. They're replaying old conversations now, rereading texts, remembering jokes they made at your expense. Suddenly, those jokes don't land the same. Suddenly they sound stupid. Suddenly they sound scared. This is the aftermath of a battle you already won internally. The storm passed, and you're standing there untouched while they're still checking for damage. Their effort to doubt you produced nothing. Your quiet focus produced momentum. Think back to a time in your past when you said something bold, maybe years ago, maybe when you were broke, ignored, or overlooked. You said, I'm going to be different. You said, I won't stay here. You said, watch what happens. At the time, it sounded ridiculous, even to you, a little. But the universe remembers those statements, not as wishes, as coordinates. That's why things are lining up now. Opportunities feel strangely timed. People treat you differently without knowing why. Doors open without explanation. It's not luck. It's alignment catching up to language. And the enemy feels it. They feel the shift before they understand it. That's why their energy changed. That's why the criticism stopped. That's why the compliments feel forced. They're watching a movie they thought they'd never have to sit through. You didn't speak too soon. You spoke from ahead, and now reality is jogging to keep up with your mouth. This isn't arrogance. This is proof that when you say something before the world agrees, you expose fear in others, not delusion in yourself. You stood alone long enough for the universe to move behind you, and now it's all coming true. Exactly like you said. All right, here's the turn in the road. This is where the noise drops, the pace slows just enough, and you decide if you're actually built for what's coming next. Because what we're about to break down isn't hype, and it isn't comfort. It's the exact reason you spoke too soon and still ended up being right. Step by step, piece by piece, we're going to unpack how your words outran your reality and why reality is now scrambling to catch up. This isn't for spectators. This is for the ones who feel that quiet pressure in their chest when truth gets close. If this message is hitting a little too accurately, that's not an accident, that's recognition. And if you already know you're staying till the end, prove it. Drop 777 in the comments. Not for luck, not for show. As a signal that you're locked in, that you're ready to own the isolation, the doubt, and the strange calm that comes when you realize you were never crazy, just early. Liking and subscribing isn't about numbers either. It's how this message keeps moving, how this voice stays loud enough to reach the next person who needs confirmation they're not imagining this shift. Now take a breath, because from here on out we go deeper, and once we start, there's no unseeing it. Number 1, you called it before they could hear it, and that's why they laughed. They didn't doubt you because you were wrong. They doubted you because you were ahead. This is where the story really starts, and this is where the enemy gets uncomfortable, because the truth is simple and ugly for them to swallow. You didn't get lucky. You didn't stumble into clarity. You didn't randomly say bold things and hope the universe would clean up the mess later. You spoke because something inside you had already shifted, and they were still standing in the same mental spot, recycling the same thoughts, living on repeat. People love to pretend breakthroughs arrive with fireworks, applause, and public approval. That's a lie weak minds tell themselves, so they don't have to explain why they missed their own moment. Real alignment doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It shows up as a sudden intolerance for nonsense, a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation, a strange calm when everyone else is panicking, and most dangerously, it shows up in your mouth before it shows up in your life. That's why you said what you said, not to flex, not to convince, not to play pretend. You said it because your internal world had already moved on. Your standards changed before your circumstances did. Your nervous system caught up to a future your environment hadn't reached yet. And to people still stuck where you came from, that sounded insane. So they laughed. They said you were talking big. They said you were getting ahead of yourself. They said, "Let's see if this one can back it up." They smiled while saying it too, like it was harmless. But underneath that smile was fear. Because nothing scares stagnant people more than someone who speaks with certainty while standing in uncertainty. Here's what they'll never admit. Your words didn't bother them because they were wrong. Your words bothered them because they exposed how small their own thinking had become. You were stretching towards something bigger while they were busy managing limitations. You were adjusting internally while they were still negotiating excuses. Alignment always does this first. It upgrades the inside before the outside can keep up. That's why you felt off around certain people. That's why conversations started to feel shallow. That's why goals you once chased suddenly felt too small. You weren't losing your mind, you were losing tolerance for a version of yourself you had already outgrown. And when you spoke from that place, it sounded like arrogance to people who had never felt it. Let's be clear. You weren't predicting the future. You were leaking information from a mindset that had already arrived there. You spoke from the destination while your body was still walking the road. And yes, that creates friction. It always does. Because people judge words based on your current position, not your internal alignment. That's where they messed up. They assumed silence meant humility and loud vision meant delusion. They forgot one thing. Every person who ever changed their life sounded crazy right before it started working. Every major shift begins as a private knowing that looks ridiculous from the outside. Think about it. When you said those things, nothing around you supported it. No proof, no evidence, no applause. And yet, you still said it. That's not confidence. That's alignment speaking through you before logic had permission to approve it. They couldn't hear the frequency you were on, so they mocked the signal. Now fast forward, things start lining up, not all at once, not dramatically, but enough. Small wins, strange timing, unexpected respect, opportunities that feel earned instead of begged for. And suddenly those same people are watching closely, pretending they weren't the ones who laughed first. This is the part that hurts them the most. You didn't change your story to fit reality. Reality changed to fit what you already said. That silence you feel around you now, that's not peace. That's recalculation. That's people replaying old conversations and realizing you weren't talking nonsense. You were talking early. They're doing mental math now, trying to figure out when it shifted, when you slipped past them without announcing it. And the answer makes them sick. It happened while they were busy doubting. You might be wondering, why did I have to go through that part? Why did I have to look foolish first? Because alignment demands isolation before confirmation. It tests whether you'll trust your internal compass when the external world offers zero support. It separates those who need permission from those who move without it. You pass that test the moment you spoke anyway. That's why this feels so heavy now. That's why this feels final. You're not hoping anymore. You're watching it unfold, and the enemy can feel it. They feel the shift in how they talk to you, the hesitation, the forced respect, the awkward compliments that come too late to matter. You didn't get louder, you didn't argue, you didn't explain yourself. You let time do the talking, and time is brutal when it proves someone right. So no, you weren't delusional, you weren't reckless, you weren't doing too much. You were aligned before it was visible, and brave enough to let your mouth expose it. They underestimated how loudly alignment whispers before it becomes undeniable, and now that whisper is echoing, in their head, in their regret, in the silence where their laughter used to be. And the scariest part for them, you're just getting started. Number 2, you didn't invent the future. You recognized it like an old scar. You didn't speak with hope. You spoke with memory. This is the part they will never understand, no matter how many times they replay it in their head. You weren't sitting around fantasizing about a better life, throwing words into the air and hoping something stuck. You weren't manifesting blindly. You weren't guessing. When you spoke the way you did, it didn't feel new to you. It felt familiar, almost boring in how certain it was, like saying something you already knew, not something you wished for. That's the detail that separates you from them. Most people talk about the future like it's a gamble, like a lottery ticket, like a maybe. You didn't. You talked about it like a location, like somewhere you had already been and simply hadn't arrived at physically yet. That's why your tone unsettled them. There was no desperation in it, no begging energy, no, "I hope this works out." It came out calm, flat, certain. That kind of certainty terrifies people who rely on proof to move. Here's the truth they hate hearing. There is a type of knowing that doesn't come from logic, data, or external validation. It comes from recognition, from alignment snapping into place so cleanly that doubt doesn't even get invited into the room. You weren't imagining a future. You were remembering a version of yourself that already existed internally. Imagine this. You walk into a room you haven't visited in years, but the moment you step inside, your body relaxes. You know where the light switch is. You know which floorboard creaks. You know the smell. You don't need directions. You don't need confirmation. Your body remembers before your mind explains. That's how your future felt to you. Certainty without evidence looks like madness to people who've never trusted themselves. When you spoke, others thought you were predicting. They thought you were making bold claims to feel important. They didn't realize you were just describing something you had already processed internally. They were waiting for permission from reality. You had already given it to yourself. That's why nothing shocked you when things started happening. When opportunities showed up, you weren't surprised. When doors opened, you didn't panic. When people changed how they treated you, it didn't feel surreal. It felt late, like reality finally showing up to a meeting you'd been attending alone for a long time. And that's another thing that eats at the enemy. You didn't celebrate loudly when it started working. You didn't scream, "I told you so." You just nodded internally like, "Yeah, this checks out," because you'd already been here. Think about it. While they were waiting to feel confident after results, you felt calm before results. While they needed proof to believe, belief was the thing that moved you toward proof. Not blind belief, not fake confidence, recognition. Like reading a book for the second time and knowing what's coming next. You don't react to a future you've already met. You recognize it. This is why your words sounded strange back then. You were speaking from familiarity, not hope. And hope sounds shaky. Familiarity sounds solid. People can sense the difference even if they can't explain it. That's why they felt uneasy instead of inspired. You weren't selling a dream. You were stating a fact they couldn't see yet. Imagine this. Everyone else is staring at a locked door, arguing about whether it will ever open. You're standing there calmly because you already know what's on the other side. You've walked those halls in your mind so many times that the door itself feels like a formality. When you say, "This will open," they hear arrogance. You hear inevitability. That gap in perception is where the conflict came from. They accused you of being unrealistic, of jumping ahead, of talking like you'd already won. And in a way, you had, just not in a way they could measure yet. You had already survived the version of yourself that doubted. You had already outgrown the mindset that begged. You had already shed the identity that needed approval. The outer world was just late to the update. You don't remember the future with your mind. You remember it with alignment. You might have wondered at times, why does this feel so certain when nothing proves it? That question alone proves you weren't delusional. Delusion needs constant reassurance. Alignment doesn't. Alignment feels quiet, steady, almost neutral. That's why you kept going, even when nobody clapped. And here's where the enemy really loses. They thought time was on their side. They assumed your confidence would expire, that eventually you'd lower your voice, soften your claims, retreat back into something safer. They were waiting for you to forget what you said. But you couldn't forget it, because you didn't invent it. You remembered it. Imagine carrying a map in your head while everyone else is arguing about directions. They think you're stubborn for not listening. You know you're just following something that's already marked. When the destination finally appears, they call it luck. You call it arrival. This is why the future unfolding doesn't feel dramatic to you. It feels correct. And now that it's happening, people are confused by how calm you are. They expect excitement, shock, disbelief. They don't realize you processed all of that internally a long time ago. What you're feeling now isn't surprise, it's closure. Closure is dangerous because it means you're no longer chasing, you're standing. The scariest people aren't the ones dreaming about tomorrow. They're the ones who already know how it ends. That's you. You spoke too soon in their eyes because they hadn't caught up to where you already were. But from your perspective, you spoke late. You'd been holding it in. You'd been sitting with that, knowing quietly, waiting for the right moment to let it slip. And when it did, it exposed the gap between you and them. Now, the universe is doing what it always does. It's syncing the outside with the inside, slowly, relentlessly, without asking for opinions. And the enemy is forced to watch as your confidence turns into confirmation. You weren't predicting a future you hoped for. You were remembering a future you recognized. And now it's walking toward you like an old friend, right on schedule. Number 3. Your certainty burned them because it showed what they never dared to try. They didn't hate your confidence. They hated the fact that they buried theirs. Let's be honest and cruel for a second, because this part matters. Your confidence didn't just annoy people, it offended them deeply. Not because you were loud or reckless, but because you spoke with a steadiness they never built the courage to develop. You said what you believed without checking the room first, and that alone made you dangerous. They weren't reacting to your words. They were reacting to the mirror your words held up. Every time you spoke with certainty, it reminded them of something uncomfortable, a dream they quit on, a risk they backed out of, a moment where they chose safety over truth. Your courage highlighted their hesitation so clearly that mocking you felt easier than admitting it. Laughter is cheaper than self-reflection. Imagine this. You walk into a dark room holding a flashlight, not pointing it at anyone, just carrying it. The people sitting in the dark get angry anyway, not because you attacked them, but because your light exposed how long they'd chosen not to see. That's what your confidence did. It illuminated the cost of their own fear. Mockery is what fear uses when it runs out of excuses. That's why they called you arrogant. That's why they said you were doing too much. That's why they tried to humble you before life did. They weren't protecting you. They were protecting themselves from the discomfort of watching someone dare to believe out loud. You might have wondered, why does my confidence bother people who aren't even affected by my choices? Now you know, because confidence without permission feels like rebellion to people who live by approval. Your certainty made their compromises look obvious. And now comes the quiet